Hello everyone, I'm joined today with Kathrine and Joe from Surrey County Council, who very kindly joined me to talk about the preparing for adulthood and post-16 aspect of an EHCP and what happens at those stages. So first of all, if I just hand over to Kathrine, if you want to introduce yourself, Kathrine.
Hello everyone, hi Leanne, I'm Kathrine Everett, I'm the Education and Inclusion Service Manager in the North East area.
Brilliant, thank you. And Joe, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you Leanne. My name is Jo McSherrie. I'm the Education and Inclusion Service Manager working closely with Kathrine, and I cover the Southwest quadrant.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So obviously a lot of our families have sent in lots of questions for us ahead of these recordings, so I'm really excited to be able to get some answers for everybody. So one of the first questions, and this is a question that we hear quite a lot, is that in terms of preparation for adulthood, if it's not discussed in the Year 9 review, what kind of conversations should be happening from year 9 onwards in terms of preparing for adulthood? Because I think a lot of families get quite confused about the whole sort of process. So it'd be really great to know what should happen from sort of Year 9 onwards.
Thanks, Leanne. During the Year 9 review, the case officer should be working with the family and the young person to discuss what the young person's plans are beyond the school or the setting that they're actually in at the moment. So it's about starting that at Year 9 onwards. That's best practice. There are resources on the Preparation for Adulthood website that are really useful for families and young people to take a look at. And we have some information available on social media as well in respect of preparation for adulthood. We do have a checklist to see how ready the family and the young person actually is for that adulthood and transition pathway. And there's lots of ideas about the outcomes that we should be looking towards working on as we sort of go from Year 9 upwards. Obviously the earlier the planning takes place, the better it is and the better chance you have of planning that best outcome. And what we're really looking at are outcomes around independent living, community engagement, employment, whether that's paid or unpaid, and making sure that somebody's health and well-being is good as well.
Brilliant. No, that's really useful to know. And so in terms of the EHCP, what should a preparing for adulthood sort of section, is there a section or what should it look like?
Yeah, so thinking about what Jo said there about the conversations that will be going on that are really person-centred and really going on, thinking about the absolute voice of the young person at this point. They should be focused on transition, what support is needed for that transition, and really clearly identify the voice of the child in their future. So thinking about a young person who might want to go to college, what steps do the current placement need to be taking in order to put that in place and make sure that that's successful for them? There are some examples of good practice for post-16 EHCPs, and they're available again on the Council for Disabled Children website. I'm sure we can share that. Once we share these videos, we can share any of these resources on the social media platforms. Also, as Jo said, the Preparing for Adulthood websites, there's a wealth of resources, and what we're doing is aligning our Year 9 checklist with those resources that are available on the PFA, those that we haven't already adopted.
Brilliant, thank you. And so what happens when there's, if a young person has an EHCP and then goes to college, and who is responsible if the college doesn't put in place the provision? Because we hear from families sometimes where they've gone to college and sometimes things go a bit wrong and perhaps the provision that's in the plan isn't necessarily being followed. But who's responsible for that, and who makes it that does happen?
I'll take that one, Kathrine, if that's all right. Because it's important to recognise that with any education healthcare plan, the local authority still holds the legal responsibility for the delivery of that plan. And it's about working together, and any non-delivery should be discussed with the case officer. So if a family or a young person himself is concerned that there is something that's within the plan that isn't being delivered, the first port of call should be that case officer. And then if there's remain concerns, it would be about using those escalation routes that exist within the local authority. So each case officer does have a senior case manager. Each senior case manager does have an area SEN manager. So it's about escalating it through those channels. And then ultimately working with the college, the young person and their family to make sure that those aspects are delivered.
No, brilliant, thank you. That's really useful, because I think sometimes families are just confused of where to sort of go. So that's really, really helpful. And then we get questions from families who, you know, possibly they've gone through college, and then they've been told that the EHCP needs to be ceased, and they get a bit confused as to why. So what would be the kind of reasons for ceasing a plan?
So as a general rule, ceasing a plan takes place when all educational outcomes, sorry, I'll say that clearer, all educational outcomes have been met by the child or the young person. And this can happen at any time in the school career. Some plans cease earlier than after college. There are natural points at which we would have that conversation with families, and the end of an educational course would be one of those times. The case officer would always want to take on board what the views of the family and the young person are when ceasing a plan, and we would want to be seeing transition support as outlined in the EHCP in a good transition support box, identifying that there is a future step. So, you know, that's what we'd want to see, but we would always take into account the needs and wishes of the young person or the family at the time we're having that conversation.
Brilliant, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think it's a funny time to preparing for adulthood, isn't it? And sometimes the plans, you know, like you say, yeah, you know, they sometimes do just come to that sort of natural thing. But I think it's that having that support in place afterwards that you know, is really important. So no, brilliant, thank you so much. I think, have we covered all the questions? I think we have.
I think that covers, because I think we've answered 2 in 1 there. So
yeah, we have. I joined them together.
Excellent, excellent.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much. That's been really, really useful. I hope it's been useful for everyone watching. And thank you so much for your time in all the answering these questions today. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Leanne.
Thank you very much.